Hello, I'm Chandler Klebs, and today I just kind of have a short little rant, although I don't know how short or long it's actually going to be. It's just that, I'm confused. See, for example, I actually don't know what my mother believes, and this is confusing to me, because I feel like I don't really know my mother. And this is probably something many people experience, not just with their parents, but with their children, with their friends, with other people all the time. And see, what's interesting is, see, now everybody knows that, if they've paid attention to what I do online, that I'm part of a podcast, the Free Will Science of Religion podcast. And I explain to the world how we don't really have a free will because everything that we do stems from prior causes. And even if you believe in true randomness, like that things happen for no reason, well, then you're not the reason something happened. So you can't take credit or blame for anything. And I've explained this to my mom um, over time as I've learned more about it myself. But what's interesting is that she recently she visited this church, okay, because she goes to church. I don't, obviously, because I don't even believe in God or anything like that. So that's important to know in case this is the first video you see. But okay, so she didn't like the sermon. Something about the sovereignty of God. Everything that happens is God's will. Part of God's plan. Basically, Calvinism or fatalism. And so I wanted to explain a few things. When I'm talking that we don't have a free will, I'm not even talking about the fatalism that comes from believing in that anything that happens in your life, God willed it to happen. Now, a lot of people believe that, the Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, many people. If you believe in an all-powerful God that also knows the future, which is kind of weird because how can you know what will happen in the future while having the power to make it be different? But anyway, back on topic, is that she doesn't believe in a God that's all-powerful. She believes in a God that can't do anything unless humans choose for God to do something. Something like that. And maybe I'm butchering what she said, but she doesn't believe God knows the future. She doesn't believe God has supernatural power, like the ability to create matter, apparently. Because what I've tried to explain is, well, that's the biblical God. That's the God that I was raised to believe in. She taught me the Bible. It was like the biggest, tops, always the first and most important subject in when she homeschooled me, But that's just it, is to believe in the biblical God at all. It's a God that created the universe, right? Which doesn't make sense because, who created God? But see, I'm just, this is not meant to, I'm not trying to say anything bad about my mother or anything, and I'm not mocking anybody. But here's my issue: is that okay? If you say that God created the universe, He created the. Let's just say God created this world, okay? Out of what? Because this now, and it's kind of a strange thing because basically, from the way the Bible implies it and the way that Christians teach it, is that God just basically speaks and things appear. It's just pure magic. God just pops things into existence. It's very just magical. And that was always the God that I believed in when, years ago, because I was raised that way. I was like, well, there's this God. He's the most powerful thing ever. And I took from that, well, if God, like, let's say that some man is raping a woman, God has the power to stop it if he wants, right? Because he can create things out of nothing. So all he has to do is create a brick wall between the rapist and whoever they're raping. God could just create a boulder and smash it on the head of somebody to stop him, But then, I mean, it also gets weird, because basically, if you have the power to create matter, then you can do anything. If you can just speak matter into existence, that's pretty much as omnipotent as you can get. But at the same time, she believes that humans have choices, and everyone knows that I'm the anti-choice determinist. I don't believe that, and it's kind of weird because I don't like the word believe, because it's true I don't believe that humans ever make choices. But it's also true I know humans don't ever make choices, because that's the evidence. I mean, here's the deal. First of all, just a quick, brief thing, anything that I do in my life, for example, is caused by events that happened even before I was conceived, before my parents had sex, before my parents met each other, before my parents were born. That's what I'm saying. For example, I often use the example that no human can claim credit. Hasbro can't even claim credit for My Little Pony, because all that they really do is take the idea of horses, and horses already exist. You know what I'm saying? Humans did not create horses. And of course, the Christians out there will say, "Well, God created horses," which I'm fine. Which I'm fine with that. But the point is, it's not just the problem that I don't think that the idea of a creator God makes any sense. That's not the problem. My problem is that I didn't notice the contradiction between, blaming humans for their sins, having people take credit or blame for their choices, and God punishing people for their sins. I mean, that never it does, okay. If you believe that, well, then you have to believe that humans genuinely make choices, which we don't. It's everything is all seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, reacting to stimuli. I mean, but here's the deal. So, if God, for example, hates gay people, well, then the solution is, well, why doesn't God just stop making them gay? Turn them to be straight or asexual or whatever. So here's the deal is, people like, well, oh, this is a sin. You've disobeyed God. I'm like, well, you can't disobey God unless God creates you in such a way that you will disobey God. So you're still obeying God even while you're disobeying God, if you believe in this all-powerful God. Now, almost all Christians, they say, yes, God is all-powerful. And that means that humans and other animals and plants, have no power apart from what God makes them do. So this fatalism is a necessary byproduct of Christianity and monotheism, that there's a all-powerful God. But this is what's confusing, because my mom doesn't believe that there's an all-powerful God. And she never really defines how she really believes it, because I need to know the details before I can understand my mom's worldview, just for the sake of understanding. Not necessarily about criticizing it or whatever. It's just, does she believe God created the world? And if so, out of what, And it's kind of a weird thing, because, I have questions about it. But at the same time, I'm not so sure whether I'm going to talk to my mom about this or not. Because when I ask her questions like this, in the past I asked these questions and she thinks I'm attacking her. She gets defensive thinking that I'm attacking her for her beliefs. And that's the problem that happens is, see, what it amounts to is I want to know the reasons, all of the reasons why someone believes something. I'm the kind of person, I've recorded a lot of videos. I've written some books, a lot of stuff in my previous books that my older books I wrote that I don't even agree with anymore, because I've learned a lot since then, But it's interesting because my problem, this is just what really turned me away from Christianity, which is weird because I don't know, that's the way I was raised. Um, and I don't even know if my mom, she says she's a Christian, but I don't know. But anyway, but here's what happened with me is, like, I was upset about the abortion thing. And everybody knows that. I mean, part of the reason I call myself the anti-choice determinist is because, not just because I know choice doesn't really exist, but also that choice is used as a synonym for abortion, which is just baby killing, you know. So here was my question back when I was a Christian is, and I found out, you know, that abortion was happening. I didn't really know much about it. It wasn't something that people talked about in church. It's not in the Bible either, except for, you know, certain, that obviously the unborn died in certain situations when the pregnant women were killed. Um, but, well, here's interesting. So remember, God is all powerful in Christian theology and has the power to create matter out of nothing, multiply food, raise the dead, heal the sick, do all these miracles in the Bible, right? And I believed that back then. So then why doesn't God end abortion? Think about it. Why doesn't God end abortion? And there were two answers that I would get from Christians. One is, well, God, basically one was that God didn't want to end abortion. The other is that God couldn't end abortion. It was interesting because what would happen a lot of times is they say, well, God wants those children to be aborted so they can go to heaven, or so that they won't do a certain bad thing when they grow up, or something. You know, people try to, like, when you get people who are used to just believing stuff that makes no sense, okay, and then they encounter something like abortion, which requires thinking, because it made me think. It was the reason the abortion issue has been so important to me, and the reason I bring it up is because, you know, it really made me think. It's like all the questions it raised, you know, like, do these aborted babies go to heaven or hell? You know, and because back then I believed that you go to heaven or hell. And so it's kind of a strange thing because I was trying to figure it all out. And the Christians don't have the answers to why God doesn't end abortion. Some of them just say they don't know, which is honest. And then some just say, well, God wants us to have freedom of choice or free will, you know. And it's always like, well, if God stepped in and did miracles to prevent tragedy, well, then that would violate people's free will. And I'm like, well, then why in the Bible supposedly did God do miracles? And I mean, like, it's sort of like, you know, God can change the languages of the Tower of Babel, or supposedly flood the whole world and kill most of what's the life on the planet, but that doesn't violate anyone's free will. But if God did something to say, I mean, it's interesting because all God would have to do to end abortion is very, very simple. Because if you're a God with that kind of power, well, just make people lose interest in sex or remove their sex organs so they can't reproduce. If they can't make the babies, they can't kill the babies, and that decreases the population, which there's so many people who say we're overpopulated. You know, it's kind of funny because that's all it would, you know, God could just simply change the desires. So that what it means is, like, if God had the power, like with the Tower of Babel story, just change the languages of all the people living at that time or something like that, well, then that means God could change your sexual orientation too. If God wanted to change your sexual orientation to be gay or straight or bisexual or asexual, then God could do that. See? So basically, that was my thing. Is I'm like, well, it's kind of strange because but the Christians don't believe that God makes people have a certain sexual orientation. They believe that people choose their sexual orientation. They say that we have free will and that we choose who we're attracted to, which is just weird. Because everybody knows that from experience. If you don't like, people don't choose their hormone levels that cause them to have puberty. They don't choose all these things that happen to them. People don't choose their sexual orientation. They don't choose anything about their biological functioning of their body. And so here's the deal. I want to do, if there's something that I know how to do to stop people from having sex, well, I could feel kind of motivated to do that, because it's kind of a strange thing, because it just seems like if there was a creator, this powerful God that existed, the most loving thing to do, it would seem, if this God cared anything about humans, or other life on the planet, would just be turn them asexual. Just get rid of sex altogether, and that would solve the problem. It really would. Because then it's like, basically, it seems like the more humans you have on the planet, the more conflicts arise, the more wars, the more fighting over resources. And so it would be, all you'd have to do, if you're God and you have that power to just change people's sexual orientation, then why not do that? If you were God, would you do that? Like, seriously, if just comment if I upload this video, then just comment. Tell me, if you were God and you could do anything, would you turn everybody to a certain sexual orientation? Would you do that? It's interesting because humans don't choose their sexual orientation. So if there's a creator that there must be some. If you believe in a creator, well, then this creator is what made people to have the sexual orientation they do. So that's interesting, and I don't believe in either choice or God. I know people don't have a choice in the most important. It's very interesting because people try to argue for a little bit of free will or a little amount of choice, but the point is, even the tiniest choices you make are never free from causality. They're never free from all of the prior causes, because your choices, whether they come from your conscious or your unconscious parts of your brain, they're not free from you, and you are not free from your preferences, and your very existence is, you only exist because your parents had sex. If you're human anyway. I mean, if you're some kind of creature, especially like a plant that reproduces asexually without any sex involved, well then yeah, your parents didn't have sex necessarily. But if you're a plant, then you're probably not listening to this video anyway, I don't think. But it's kind of interesting because humans don't choose whether they're straight or gay or asexual or whatever all there is. They don't choose, it's interesting. And with abortion, it's sort of like, well, they say, well, if the woman doesn't want the child, then she should have the right to kill it. That's what they say, which is kind of strange, because that's like giving people the right to kill anybody that they don't like, pretty much. But it's kind of a weird thing because, well, in that case, it's like, why doesn't God just change what she wants? Why doesn't God just change the rapist to not want to rape? Why doesn't he? I mean, seriously, it's kind of a strange thing, because once you get into it, I mean, there's all sorts of psychological and biological factors that go into the way people are, their genetics, and then their conditioning, all the way they're raised, all their experiences up to the present moment. And so, for example, just as an example of certain ways that we don't really choose things is, I didn't choose to like the taste of ketchup more than mustard, or peanut butter more than jelly. You don't choose our food preferences. we don't choose this stuff. We just like things that we do, and we don't like things that we don't. And we have no say in that. It's interesting. But another thing is that I didn't choose to be a Christian back when I thought I was a Christian anyway. And I don't know what a Christian is anymore because there's nothing there to believe. There's nothing that can be believed once you know more how the world works. But it's like, um, I just prayed the prayer to accept Jesus into my heart many times over because I was afraid of going to hell. It was about hell. And it's like, oh, well, if I do this, then I don't have to go to hell. Of course, I didn't want to go to heaven either. And now I don't even believe that there's such a thing as an afterlife or a soul or a spirit that survives death of the body, on this planet. So it's kind of funny, like, if you were to take me back when I was, a teenager or early 20s, I thought, well, I'm either going to heaven or hell, but I didn't know which. It was kind of a strange thing because it's never clear because you have no proof, no evidence that you're going to anywhere after you're dead. I mean, how could you know that until you're dead? Well, anyway, look, I didn't mean to have this long of a rant, but basically, I'm confused because I don't know how I believe that about the heaven and hell and this powerful God. But back when I did believe in this powerful God, I was mad at God for not stopping the evil in the world. And the thing is, people say atheists are mad at God. I'm like, well, no, I'm not mad at God now because I don't think a God exists even. But when I did believe in God, I was mad at God. It's kind of a strange thing. And then, I spent so much time being mad at Christians too. Because even after I didn't believe in God, like, I was mad at the Christians for choosing to be the way they are, but I realized that they didn't choose to be Christians any more than I chose it, because I didn't choose it. They're just afraid of going to hell. They're afraid that if they don't believe in God and do certain things or try to believe certain doctrines, that they go to hell. So it's all fear-based. That's all religion is fear. It seems that way to me anyway, because it was never anything good about religion. Nothing. Well, anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, but that's just it. I don't in any way believe any parts of Christianity anymore, and I don't know which parts my mom believes or not, and there's a lot that I don't say. There's a lot I don't talk about with my mom because I guess I'm afraid she'll get mad at me if I ask too many questions. And even though she says she likes me to question, I'm just not sure how much she's willing to question these things herself. It's like, and really, I would just I don't know. It's just like I don't want to. I don't know. I just can't. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I don't want to fight with anybody. But at the same time, it's like I don't want any part of it. I don't want any part of religion. I don't even really like talking about it with people. But I guess the reason that I record videos about this, like I'm doing now, or the reason that I talk to people on Facebook about religion and why I don't believe it, is I'm hoping that they'll wake up. I'm hoping that they'll wake up and start learning how the world really works. But then the question is, do they really want to know? Do they really want to question their religious beliefs when, for some reason, some of these people, what they're believing, it gives them comfort? And I'm not concerned about that. I'm just concerned about, is this true? And I also am concerned about the morality. People can start wars and kill people all the time and say that God commanded them to do it. I just think that religious belief makes people crazy. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on the matter for now, and I don't know. That's just my thoughts, and I just kind of needed to rant. And if even if nobody listens to this, I guess I don't know. I guess I feel better now. Well, if you listen to this, I don't know. I guess you can let me know. But anyway, that's just my thoughts of what's going on in my head right now. Bye.